Excuse my voice if it's sounding a little weird. I've caught some sort of bug. I'm sure if I had just worn a mask, then this minor sore throat could have all been avoided. And certainly it would be a non-issue if only I had been federally mandated to do so. But I'll be a little shorter today. And normally I don't like to talk about the same story twice in 1 week. But when the story is rule of law or nah, as in bureaucrats openly saying it should be disregarded, everything else just seems comparatively insignificant. And besides, this is a historically significant event too. This was Dr. Fauci's last, and maybe first, and maybe only CNN Plus interview. I don't know, like everybody else, I've never even tried to watch it. The news of CNN Plus's demise was broken to me unironically by Twitter's algorithm promoting Brian Stelter's announcement of it as, quote, history. After under a month of live operation, CNN Plus is indeed a historical artifact now, or soon to be. You have until April 30th to hurry over and see what everybody outside of a meager 10,000 daily viewers in the world has been missing out on. And who could believe people haven't been enticed to pay the subscription fee by riveting content teasers like this one? That is 5'8" reporter Casey Hunt absolutely towering over Dr. Fauci. She is the tree to his Keebler elf. And actually, that's an edited promotional photo to make him look as good as they possibly could. Here is the original. Just kidding. Here's the original. Okay, fine. Here's the original. Seriously though, it is pretty weird to have a doll of yourself on your desk. Even weirder if it's life-size. As preposterous as the whole scene is, though, the real joke is not who would win in a fight between Fauci and his own bobblehead. The real joke is what Fauci says in this historic CNN Plus interview, which is that he disagrees, unsurprisingly, with the recent federal court ruling striking down the CDC's transportation mask mandate, not because he has a different assessment of the law at issue, though, but because he thinks the law is actually irrelevant. He thinks that the CDC should exist outside of and above the law, which sounds like an exaggeration, but it's actually one of the clearest explanations I've ever heard Fauci give. But before we hear it, let's back up to where we left off. Last video, I mentioned some hypotheticals about how this mask mandate situation would develop under initial reports that said Biden was going to accept the loss and just move on, not appeal. But it turns out those initial reports were wrong. Biden will appeal. And on a surface level, that may seem like a ridiculous decision. Why waste time and political capital fighting for a mandate that's set to expire in a few weeks anyway on an issue that few people really care about, no matter what the propaganda polling says? Well, because as their decision not to request a stay to immediately reinstate this mask mandate demonstrates, they aren't fighting for the current mandate. They're fighting for the mandate power of the future. If they don't appeal Monday's court decision, they accept the precedent that the CDC actually has legal limitations by statute, and the CDC can't just do whatever the hell they want, whenever the hell they want, and they can't have that. The CDC must have dictatorial powers, or at least powers beyond the court's current reading of the law that governs it. Jen Psaki explains that is the goal of this appeal.
And the Department of Justice, as you noted, has indicated that they would appeal, not just because they think it's entirely reasonable, of course, to have this additional time to look at it, but because they think that the for current and future public health crises, we want to preserve that authority for the CDC to have in the future.
Preserve is an interesting word choice in this context because it implies that the CDC already had these sweeping powers and the court just illegitimately reduced them. No. The CDC has expanded its powers well into domains in which it has none, legally or historically. The eviction moratorium that the Supreme Court struck down recently, this airplane mask mandate has no precedent legally or historically, and others. When Psaki says preserve, what she means is expand beyond existing limitations. She means the will of the CDC comes first, and the actual law comes second, or not at all. And just in case you think that the White House's head communicator is miscommunicating that concept, CNN Plus brings in the spaghetti leprechaun himself to confirm it.
Surprised and disappointed because those types of things really are the purview of the CDC. This is a public health issue. And we are concerned about that, about courts getting involved in things that are unequivocally public health decisions. I mean, this is a CDC issue. It should not have been a court issue. It was perfectly logical for the CDC to say, wait a minute, we were planning on ending this mandate on a certain date. Let's wait a period of time until May 3rd, which was a very sound public health decision. So for a court to come in and interfere in that is really unfortunate. It's unfortunate because it's against public health principles, number one. And number two is because that's no place for the courts to do that. This is a CDC decision, and that's very bad precedent when you have courts making a decision and looking at what the basis of the decision was. It was not sound.
Yeah, but the court didn't make a public health decision. The court made a legal one. The court didn't say that the CDC's mask mandate is wise or unwise policy. The court said that the CDC lacks the legal authority to do it, in the same way that the CDC saying people over 300 pounds are hereby banned from eating cheeseburgers might be a wise health decision. The CDC does not have the legal authority to make and enforce such an order. Health logic is not the test at issue here. Public health principles are not the test at issue here. Legal principles are, but Fauci is saying it's very bad precedent for the rule of law to be priority. Instead, the proper precedent is whatever the CDC says goes. The CDC isn't just a fourth branch of government by this logic. It is all of them. And above all of them, it writes the law. It enforces the law. It interprets the law. The CDC is judge, jury, and executioner, accountable to nobody but its own infinite wisdom. If you ever wonder what it'll be like to meet God, well, wonder no more. Apparently, you already have. And it's not just Psaki and Fauci who want the separation of powers and the rule of law shredded. It is also the White House's coronavirus response coordinator, Ashish Jha.
Decisions like how we protect the health of the American people should be decided by public health scientists and our public health agencies like the CDC, and not by a federal judge. There's no question about it. It is absolutely essential that CDC have this ability, whether it's for the rest of this pandemic or for future health crises. It is essential that CDC have the ability to put in rules that are going to protect the traveling public.
What is absolutely essential is that the CDC follows the law and that CDC powers and authorities originate where all government power originates, with the people. Because even if you do think that coronavirus is a health risk, well, historically speaking, dictatorship is a lot riskier. It cannot be overstated how significant of a betrayal these statements are. These are unelected DC bureaucrats declaring themselves above the law, declaring themselves above the people's authority by virtue of their own perceived superiority to you. They're smarter than you, they know better than you, and therefore your rights and your consent are irrelevant. That is the base premise of every argument they're making. These are statements they should be afraid to make, because these are statements that should carry consequences, because these are statements that are a complete betrayal of our system and the moral concepts that establish it. The only TV appearance happening should be a Sesame Street cameo dressed up in a fresh Big Bird costume explaining how the letter T stands for treason. And for good reason. We just heard the logic of every dictator who's ever abused his people. Oh, I'm doing good things. And because I'm doing good things, the process by which I do these good things is irrelevant. It doesn't matter how many rights I trample. It doesn't matter how many laws I break. It doesn't matter how many bodies I stack to get to the goal. Because my goal is virtuous, anybody standing in my way has no right to be there. And if you have no right to be there, you will be disposed of. And that's not my apocalyptic embellishment. That is the logical arc of their own statements. When they say that the courts are irrelevant, they are saying that the law is irrelevant. When they say that the law is irrelevant, they are saying that you are irrelevant, since foundationally you are the law's author. If they don't view you or your inherent authority over your own life with even the basic courtesy of relevant consideration, you will be treated as irrelevant. So eventually, it is either that we stop these people or that they come for us, because as they're admitting, they have no moral or legal concepts to restrain themselves. And that is not the deal I would choose. I would much prefer leave me alone, and I will gladly leave you alone. But By their own description, they reject the terms of that proposal. Their counteroffer is, you shut the hell up and do exactly as we tell you. But I am not without faith, though. Even if this is a conflict that's inevitable, moral truth tends to defeat abusers long term. Not only that, but history tends to be unkind to short guys who don't understand their limits. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Minds, that is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chatting my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.